still keeping up with the conversation here on Good Morning Kenya. We thank you for that. Do let us know where you're watching us from. The hashtag ever remains Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Television is our official station handle. Our official Facebook page is KBC Channel 1 TV, and our SMS number is 20154. And you can always tag us individually on those tweets, posts, and any messages you may be having for us. Our social media handles ever remain at Raymanyara, at Ramaguko, at Dorina Range, and my handle is at Jane Wambui across all social media platforms. And did I say our SMS number? I think I did, but if I didn't, it is right here. All right, the name and location is always appreciated. So right now, moving on to the second discussion for the day, still in line with the conversation that we had earlier in regards to SRHR, quite a mouthful. SRHR. We now want to move along the conversation, just still focus on another set of the part of the population that still struggles with being recognized with the potential that they have, and this is the youth. And there is one man in particular who has been at the forefront championing for the youth and just helping all of us see the potential that lies among the youth and what more we need to do to empower them and to bring them up to help them fulfill the potential that they have. And this is none other than Mabingue Ngom, who is the regional director at the UNFPA for West and Central Africa. Karibu sana. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
I am very sure you're on social media.
Absolutely.
Are you able to remember your social media handles?
No, yes.
Go ahead and share with us.
Mabingue Ngom, one, or Mabingue Ngom.
All right. So you can also tag him along those tweets or any comments that you may be having in regards to this discussion. Now, you are the regional director for West and Central Africa when it comes to, at least in the United Nations Population Funds. Maybe for someone out there is wondering, what is the UNFPA all about, considering we're going to be marking 50 years, with UNFPA being in operation. But let's just start by understanding the mandate and the role of UNFPA.
Thank you very much. United Nations Population Fund is one of the agencies of the United Nations dealing with issues related to sexual and reproductive health and rights. At the heart of our mandate are issues related to maternal health,
yes,
family planning, but also issues related to gender-based violence. We are the world champion when it comes to census, data and evidence that are vital for any good policy, but also if you want to deliver value for money,
yes,
for any public intervention. We are now 50-year-old. That's why we're here in Nairobi, celebrating also the 25th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development. And I think we're very happy to be in Kenya. And our mandate, in one word, is all about making the world a better place for everybody.
Making the world a better place for everybody. And no one is left behind. No one is being left behind. Now, as we celebrate 50 years, with UNFPA being in operation, 25 years for ICPD will be marked, with the summit that is happening. What does this mean? How far have we come as a population, as a global population?
Well, I would say that we have made excellent progress since Cairo in 1994.
1994, yeah.
And let me just put 3 figures on the table. We have reduced maternal mortality by more than 40%. And it might not mean a lot for the general population, but if you think about saving
lives, yeah,
40 lives for every 100, I think that's a lot. That's a lot. Second, we have also made good progress when it comes to gender-based violence by gaining 10% reduction of gender-based violence. I think that's very good, especially
progress, yes,
considering the nature of the issue at hand. It's not like the traditional issue like building classroom or distributing bed nets. It's a totally different ballgame because it touches the human being, it touches the society, it touches how we think, how we behave, and how we relate to each other. But we have also made a 20% increase when it comes to access to modern contraceptive for women. Again, we should not underestimate what it means for these 25% women who today have access to family planning, what it means for their health, what it means for their rights, and what it means for their family, and what it means for society in general, because we know that family planning, for instance, help cut by 1/3 maternal mortality. One. Second, we know that when women have access to family planning, they have much better control over their life.
Yes.
And they can have a much better control over their productive life and their reproductive life and their contribution to society. So every single progress we made is huge in terms of moving forward prosperity for all. But that's why we're here. We're not here only to celebrate. We are very, very concerned about the millions of women who are still struggling to have access to family planning. The millions of women who are dying when giving birth. But also with young people, and I heard earlier today that 1 young person out of 7 in Kenya get married before the age of 18 years.
Imagine.
This is a terrible, missed opportunity in terms of increase of productivity, increase of the rights of the people,
It's
access to
outright
rights.
denial.
And I think that's why we're here. What we want in Nairobi is really to build on what we have learned, the good practices,
Yes.
to scale up and to fast track our effort to scale up. So we are here to accelerate the progress we'll be celebrating. So Nairobi is a turning point, and Nairobi is what will change everything in the life of our people.
Accelerating the promise, again, boiling back to understanding what constitutes of your right sexually and reproductively, and what you need to know what constitutes of a violation when it comes to your sexual and reproductive health and rights. So that is what is going to be part of this conference that will be happening later on in the day. We'll be bringing you that live coverage right here on KBC Channel 1. But let's just go back to the discussion. We have made so much progress over the years, and with this 25 years of taking stock of the ICPD, it's just saying how much has been done and what more needs to be done. But let's talk a bit about the demographic dividends, which I believe is an area that you are very passionate and very aggressive about. But let's just start by helping our viewer even understand, when you talk about a demographic dividend, what do we mean even in the first place?
Well, I think it's I often say that we need to demystify the term. It's very simple. It's about gain in development growth that happen when we have a change in the structure of the population, moving from a population that is predominantly young, not involved, engaged in production, to a population where you have the biggest cohort is in the production bracket between, I would say, 15 and 64. So you have a limited number of people that are really not producing.
Okay.
But this is not the whole story. The whole story is once you have the structure, now you need to make it work for growth. So you need to make sure that your people are educated.
Yes.
They have the right skills. They're healthy. And they have productive jobs. But all of this can only happen if you are in an environment of good governance. So it's why when you talk about demographic dividend, we talk about 4 will.
Okay.
One is health, including family planning. It's vital. The second one is education and skill development. And you have job creation. And then you have a good policy environment. We call in one line governance, good governance. So when it happens, Africa can reap about $500 billion every year, and for the next 30 years. And I'm just talking about the first window. That is about the youth demographic, the youth dividend. So Asian countries, we traditionally call the Asian tigers, they get their, their speed in growth from the demographic dividend. So Africa can follow the same path and build on the current youth bulge and make sure that we accelerate our march toward prosperity for all. And I hope we will do that, because this is the only way for Africa to be able to succeed in terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, but also in terms of realizing the Africa we want by the horizon 2030. And for this to happen, we have one card to play. It's the demographic dividend, that is investing in young people. But let me say one thing. Head of state and government were convinced. They don't need to be convinced anymore. In 2017, they decided that it will be the year for harnessing the demographic dividend for Africa.
Yes.
And so far, excellent progress.
Excellent progress. Changing the structure of the population and knowing how to maximize it. Now, you have been termed as one of the continent's foremost ambassadors when it comes to championing for the youth dividend. Maybe somebody's wondering, why did you even embark on this journey to really champion for the youth as being, you know, just investing in the youth for their potential, not just for now, but for the sake of our future? Why did you even embark on this journey of just empowering the youth dividend even in the first place?
I think I was away for like 20 years. And when I returned in Dakar 4 years ago, I did look at the situation around me, and it was obvious that there was an urgent need to do something for our young people. And I happened to be in Banjul by accident for the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the African Youth Chapter. And I was shocked by the number of countries who did not move forward. I was also shocked by the fact that most of the issues we're facing today in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in the Corn of Africa, in the Mano River Union, everywhere in Africa, would have been avoided if we have done what we were supposed to do for our young people.
So some of these problems are problems that have just cut across time.
Absolutely. And in Banjul, I was about to sit with young people. They have a banner behind me. It was written, "No one left behind." And I told them, let's put a cross. It should be put young people first. And that's the beginning of the movement, hashtag put young people first. And I hope you will go ahead and look at it on social media. And I think from then, we have put a lot of effort to really put the issue of young people very high in the continental and in the global agenda.
Now, when it comes to the roles that the government have to play when it comes to empowering the youth, we always talk about youth unemployment. It is one of the biggest challenges, at least here in Kenya. It is one of the biggest challenges our youth are struggling with, employment. And the government has a role to play. You know, we have youth funds set up, but also, you know, it is not enough for the entire population. When it comes to the role of the government, let's start by understanding what more they can do. And let's start with opportunity. What opportunities do you feel the government is very capable in terms of providing the youth with?
Well, I think that's a very important question. And frankly, I think these are some of the issues we do not address very effectively. I think we have the tendency, for instance, to look at youth employment as providing funds, as creating a few jobs and so on. But we are not addressing the issue. You know, and let me give you one figure, because I like to focus on the data and the evidence. Currently in Africa, we have over 20 million young people coming to the job market every year. And we know that at best 3 million of them will have a job. So the point is, are we making progress? I believe no. Should we focus only on creating a few 100,000 jobs or 1 or 2 million jobs? Are we resolving the issue? I believe no. So what we need to do, we need to continue to do what to do, and perhaps we need to do more, we need to do better, but unless we address the issue behind, we might not see directly, that is high population growth.
It boils down to the population.
Exactly. So if government are serious about addressing the issue of job, the issue of keeping young people in school, giving them good education.
And old people in offices.
Exactly. I think they have to do something about high population growth. And I keep mentioning the example of European countries. They spend about, you know, let me get this way. They have 18% of their population aged between 5 and 20 years. In Africa, it's about 38, 39, in some countries 40. So this means if we have to pay for education, same level of education, we have to invest twice than Europe. And we know that it's not possible. So this means we are not able to give good education to our children, so we'll not be able to compete with Europe and the rest of the world. Most of them will be in the street.
Yes.
In Niger, a month ago, the highest authority told me they have 600,000 new young people who are supposed to go to school every year. And they're able to afford only 300, 50%. So what are we going to do about the 300,000 young people every year, plus the stock? What does this mean for the no one left behind? Can government get all of these young people in school? So it's not about voluntarism, it's about pragmatism. So unless we address high population growth, we will continue to have these people who cannot go to school, these people who cannot get good education, people who cannot get good health care, people who cannot get job, people crossing the ocean, our young people being instrumentalized in the desert. And I think the one thing that can change everything is we help women have access to family planning.
And that brings me to the next point, actually.
We help women have choice. So beyond the right, it's a policy that will change everything and resolve most of the problem we face today.
Now, that actually brings me to the next point, that is family planning and the vital role that it has to play, because at least we have made so much progress. In 1995, I believe the fertility rate was about 6.9. Right now, we're talking about 3 point something. So we have made progress, but there still is a problem. When it comes to access to these family planning methods and information, I believe that is still an area that is struggling. We're still lacking when it comes to the information and access to these family plannings, especially in informal settlements. What more do you feel can be done to just encourage, the uptake of family planning, starting with the information and the family planning tools themselves?
No, I think a lot can be done, and we're doing a lot. But let me just flag that while fertility rates have decreased significantly as an average, there are some terrible issues in some places, like the Lac Chad Basin, the Sahel, and so on. So in these places, you still see, women in general having 6 children. And I think it's work in progress, but I think we need to do better. What we need to do, I think, is really access to information. I think it's vital access to robust information and to transparent information. So people, young people, individuals, couples have the information so they can make the right choice.
Proper decisions.
I think it's a fundamental. For me, the right to information, I think I would take it as a first right. Because if you don't have the right information, you will not be able to exercise your right to decide, your right to choose. That's number one. The second one is the access to quality services.
Quality
and I would
services.
even put inside quality a continuous availability of good services that are not harmful and that are accessible on a voluntary basis. We at the United Nations Population Fund, we do not compromise with the quality of the information and the quality of the services. It's why one of our objective is to make sure that we go to places no one goes.
Yes.
And we make sure that our services are available and that women and young people, individuals and couples, have choice, including which method they will choose when they decide to go for family planning.
Yeah.
So the information is vital, service is vital, but the one thing also we are working, and it's an important part of society, how can we create demand? Demand creation. Second, how can we remove the roadblocks? This is why we are working very closely with all leaders, religious leaders who are instrumental, youth leaders who are vital, parliamentarians, as you know, they make decisions. They are the ones who decide about the law. They are the ones who vote budget, but they are the ones also who have control over the executive. And if we have them on board, we will have the resources we need to help our young people move forward. We also work with our partners, because Africa alone will not be able to do it. The demographic dividend, let's just be clear about it. It requires massive investment in the 4th sector I have mentioned. Unfortunately, and despite the fact that the most fast-growing countries are in Africa, the fiscal space to do the investment is just not here. So we need to get countries to do more, to do better. we need to mobilize all kinds of resources beyond the financial resources, but we need the international community support
To come
to
together.
accelerate change on the ground.
Yes.
Because it's not an agenda for Africa, it's an agenda for everybody.
The global.
Because what's happening today in Africa, our failure to invest in young people, our failure to help women access to family planning are affecting everybody. So it's the business for all of us.
All right. Now, you have just to take a step back, you had mentioned, some of the different barriers that are there and the possible solutions. And, being in Africa, we are cultural, we are very spiritual, and you have managed to work with the religious leaders to bring the change that is necessary. Maybe for every country out there wondering how the religious leaders can be involved when it comes to sexual and reproductive health and rights. Maybe just try and show us the link and how it has worked with the regions that you have managed to work with.
I think, let me focus on the principles. I think one of the basic principles is really trust.
Yes.
I think it's to build trust between and among partners. I think it's vital. It's one of the things where my team in West and Central Africa is really focusing, creating the condition for the various partners involved who's supposed to work together to look at the same direction, trust each other. I think it's fundamental. The second one is data and evidence. Data and evidence will help us close the gap, narrow the gap. And I think when you have the data and the evidence, when you sit with religious leaders and explain to them, show the data that family planning will help women, that family planning will cut maternal mortality by 1/3, you have supporters. You no longer have enemies. You have supporters.
Because you have
but
the evidence.
It takes time. That's my third point. It takes time, and you cannot do it overnight. Because even when you go to buy your sandwich at the McDo, you wait. You have to wait for it. So when you are working on these sensitive, well-rooted issues that have been here for years or 100 years, you cannot believe that you can change them overnight. So we have to follow a process that is robust, building the trust, using the evidence and the data, but also, a good understanding that it will take time, you will make progress, and you will never go back. And today, I'm very happy with the excellent relationship we have with religious leaders, parliamentarians, traditional communicators that are extremely instrumental, because these people have the ability to articulate our issues, this very sensitive issue, in a very simple manner that do not hurt, but get, I would say, the
information
buy-in,
where it's supposed to
the
be.
ownership of the people for whom we are working. So I think the idea of calibrating our communication, using the right tool, the right angle, building the right network and the relationship, I think have the ability to help us accelerate. In Nairobi, what we want is to celebrate this pocket of good practices, build on them, and scale up.
Yes.
Because unless you move from what happened in one village to make sure that every single country and then every country and the entire continent benefit from it, we will not see progress. So while Nairobi is about scaling up the excellent initiative we have and accelerating the pace, so we don't need to wait 2030 to stop child marriage. We don't need to wait until 2030 to end maternal mortality. And we do not need to wait until 2030 to make sure that the young woman I met in the morning at the door here have access to family planning if she needs it. We can do it now. We have the knowledge. We have the commitment. And I think we should just go ahead and do it.
We should go ahead and do it. Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, maybe just to talk about a certain part of the population that has a very integral role to play but isn't as acknowledged. And these are the parents of these young girls and boys. They are the first caregivers, the first sources of information. When it comes to empowering the parents out there across the continent to come on board and be part of this journey to just help bring down maternal rate for our younger, mortality rate rather, for our young girls who are having children at the ages of 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. bringing down the rate at which, family planning is being used among young girls who don't need it, and, also bringing down, challenges that are facing the youth. When it comes to every role that a parent can play, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I think they have a critical role. But again, if you go back to leadership, and I think my key word is leadership. I think leaders, wherever they are, in schools, in mosque, in church, in the street, they are instrumental. They're trusted. People listen to them. People follow them, and I think they should be the entry point. In houses, parents are the leaders in the houses, and
yes.
they have to play their role. But I believe what happened in Dakar a few months ago, when the imam, the deputy imam of Al-Azhar, come and deliver or issue a fatwa against child marriage. It's not only the other imam who listen, but also it's the entire Muslim community. So for me, this kind of message, I think, need to be conveyed. When we brought 1,500 imam in N'Djamena 2 years ago to have a conversation around family planning, and they decided that that Islam support family planning. For me, this go beyond the family. It embarks the entire Muslim community. What we have not done very well is really this excellent progress to communicate them so that Muslim families, wherever they are, not only in West and Central Africa, have a much better understanding about what is Islam's perspective about
when it comes to family planning.
So I think we can do a better job by communicating better, and I think we can do a better job by replicating some success stories like what I have seen in N'Djamena, when you have the Superior Council of Islamic Affairs. They have a radio giving messages on family planning, child spacing, etc. And they have a clinic providing family planning services, and they have the university. So everything is done, but at a small scale. Now the challenge is, how can we learn from this very successful, very conducive program and make sure we don't have them only in N'Djamena? If you have them only in N'Djamena, we're not making progress. If you have them everywhere in Africa and everywhere around the world, then we will be, I would say, delivering on the promise of the ICPD agenda.
And accelerating it, for that matter. And again, it boils back to access to information, which I believe is a very vital role, and we need to start by putting this information out there, as he has said, replicating some of these success stories so that it's not just happening in one region, but it's cutting across the continent and the world over. Well, that is all the time we had for this discussion. Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Mabingue Ngom, who is the United Nations Population Fund's Regional Director for West and Central Africa, being part of this discussion. Of course, he's going to also be part of the organizing team for the ICPD summit rather, that will be happening later on in the day. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
You could just maybe your parting shots to our viewers, and also remind us social media handles in regards to UNFPA's 50 years, ICPD's 25 years, and what more we all have to do as a population.
No, I think let me thank you again for being part of the agenda, for pushing the agenda, for sharing the information. I think it's extremely important. As I said earlier, the world tomorrow will depend on what we'll be doing here in Nairobi this week. What we'll do for a woman, for young people, will impact peace, security, stability, and prosperity for all. So I hope we leave Nairobi in 3 days with strong commitment, commitment for action, commitment to accelerate, commitment to scale up, and commitment to invest in young people. And I hope that this commitment will not be a commitment for a summit, but a commitment for action when we go back home, and a commitment we're going to keep for years, because we know that the change we want to see cannot happen overnight, and it's everybody's business.
Yes.
So I really want to thank you again for having me, and congratulations to Kenya for hosting this summit. The first one happened in Africa, and we are very happy that 25 years after, Kenya is hosting this very important summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us as well.